Good people, what's going on? Welcome to Mose Knows. I am your host, Mose. Still a little bit under the weather. I'm not as bad as I was. You can probably hear my voice isn't back 100% yet, but the show must go on. Got to bring it to you this week. Mose Knows Fantasy. We're going to recap week 9, preview week 10. This episode is going to be a little bit different. This is a pre recorded episode. Got a lot going on. My son basketball season is starting, so he got his first little warm up tournament. First game is tonight, so I'm gonna run and take care of that while y'all watching this. And then we'll be back because this is double header Thursday. We're at the mid season point. We got an episode tonight with our brother Jesse Naylor, just recapping what's going on in the NFL up until this point. But you got me right now for a few minutes. We're just gonna touch on some fantasy things. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sorry, Mose couldn't be here, but he doing the Mrs. Mosley thing right now. You know, they're out doing. They're enjoying Valentine's Day. Is what I was trying to say.
I got you.
Y'all the worst.
You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. I guarantee real takes, ain't no faking that at all. If you don't know, you gon' know. Mose knows, tune into the show. Not a game, nitty gritty, ready go committee. Mose should be the CEO. Too solid, too real, too 100. I'ma keep it real when you don't. Just that real gold talk. 24 karat words. San Francisco 49er fam. Realest squad on the earth. The 5 God, number 5, taking us to 6. Young killer Trey Lance. New era, new season. Mose got you covered. Go ahead and subscribe. 2022 this year. Got a whole nother vibe. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. Tune in for the vibe. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. Mose knows.
You don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, no, but I know that. Mose knows. Listen, we're here. We back. Mose knows fantasy. Y'all know the format. We're going to jump right in. We're going to start with the top fantasy performers. Again, I love this segment. Some new names, some names we've seen before. But let's see who we got. First on the list, our top fantasy quarterback of week 9, Justin Fields. Good to see the young man get loose. We haven't seen much in the passing aspect. In this game, that wasn't any different. 17 to 28 for a modest 123 yards in the air and 3 touchdowns. But boy, oh boy, was he able to get busy outside the pocket. 15 carries, 178 yards, and a touchdown. So that's 4 total touchdowns for the young man. He was absolutely phenomenal. Funny little quote coming from that game. Head coach Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins said he told Justin Fields, he said, I told him to stop scrambling. It just got frustrating because he wouldn't listen. Justin Fields doing what he had to do to try to get his team a W. Unfortunately, they fall short by 3 points. But 42.7 fantasy points this week for Justin Fields, our top fantasy quarterback of week 9. Moving on to our number 2 quarterback this week, Patrick Mahomes. 43 of 68 for 446 yards, 1 touchdown. He did throw an interception. He also added 63 yards on the ground on 6 carries and a touchdown. A lot of people thought this team wouldn't be able to move the ball as effectively without Tyreek Hill. Obviously, it's changed. It's a little bit different, but they're still able to move the ball now. You know, passing almost 70 times for 446 yards, that tells me one thing. This team isn't able to run the football. That could be lack of talent. That could be the offense is more high-powered and wants to throw the ball. That could be due to the Titans' defense that they played on Monday night. But While this team can win with Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball 70 times, I think you do want to be a little bit more balanced. So I think teams are going to realize that and try to force them to run the ball and not pass as much. What a day. I thought the numbers from Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, sorry you guys didn't get that episode last week, I thought those numbers were high. Joe Mixon said, listen, man, let me show you how this is really done. 22 carries, 153 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground, added 4 catches on 5 targets for 58 yards and another touchdown. 5 total touchdowns for Joe Mixon. 55.1 fantasy points in PPR format. He went off. Our second top fantasy running back, Kenneth Walker III. He wants to be known as Ken Walker, so we'll call him Ken Walker. 26 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also caught 3 passes on 4 targets for 20 yards. Total fantasy points this week, 27.9. Kenneth Walker is becoming a stud in the Seahawks offense. Going from a week where this team put up 0 points, and this particular person had, I think, 1 or maybe 1 target. They changed some things around. Josh McDaniels changed some things around in his play calling. And he got his best weapon on the offensive side of the ball more involved. 17 targets, 10 receptions for Devontae Adams, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Total PPR fantasy points this week of 39.6. Unfortunately, this Raiders team was not able to hold off the Jaguars, and they do not get a dub. Tyreek Hill, a name who has been on this list before, he's on the list again. What a performance in Chicago. 7 receptions on 8 targets, 143 yards and a touchdown. 27.3 fantasy points this week. To our tight ends, Dallas Goedert, first time on this list. 8 receptions on 9 targets, 100 yards and a touchdown in Thursday night's victory over the Texans. 24 total fantasy points. And Cole Kmet, his brother in Titan University in Chicago, caught 2 of those 3 Justin Field touchdown passes, caught 5 receptions on 6 targets, 41 yards, those 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 carries for 9 yards. So total for Cole Kmet this week, 22 points. And I'm kind of upset. I think I either bench Cole or cut him because he hasn't been very consistent, and he put up 22 points. Thankfully, I won, so it's all good. Over to our kicker, Nick Folk, second straight week. He was on the list last week. I know you guys didn't see that, but he's back on the list again. 18 points last week, 14 points this week. In the past 2 weeks, he has not missed a kick. Last week, he was 5 for 5 on field goals, and I think 1 of 1 on extra points. This week, he was 4 for 4 on field goals and 2 of 2 on extra points. So he's in the zone right now. 14 total fantasy points this week for Nick Folk, our top fantasy kicker. One of my favorite portions of this list, the defensive player. Now, I know a lot of people say they go with the linebackers. They go with the safeties, guys, high tackle volume. I go with the big-name pass rushers, your T.J. Watts when he's healthy, your Myles Garrett, your Nick Bosa's, your Matt Judons. But they don't ever show love to the big fellas. They don't ever show love to the defensive tackles. Shout out to my man, Javon Hargrave, the highest scoring single defensive player this week. 6 solo tackles, 1 assist, 3 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, 3 QB hits, 20.4 fantasy points this week. Hargrave has been an absolute monster since coming to Philadelphia. I love seeing his game improve. Love seeing the maturation in him as a player, and it's paying big dividends on that Eagles defensive line. Shout out to the DTs all across the world. And then our top defense and special teams unit is going to be the New England Patriots. 9 sacks, one interception that was returned for a touchdown. And as you see, number 44, number 41 giving each other the in-air shoulder chest bump. They also blocked the punt and recovered. Total fantasy points for this defensive special team unit, 24 points. Matt Judon is going crazy, leading the league with 11.5 sacks. He had 3 in this game. Patriots are middle of the road. They can still got time to do little things, especially if their defense and special teams continues to play like this. Shout out to the top fantasy performers this week. Love seeing what you guys do on a week in, week out basis, helping folks win their fantasy leagues. Speaking of fantasy leagues, let's talk about mine. Let's see where we at. Shout out to the bro, my brother for real. Shout out to Fair to God. We had a pretty decent matchup. It was close. 104-99. Oh man, he got 20 points from Jalen Hurts. Got another 18 from Cordero Patterson. Got 20 points from Travis Kelce. 10 from Terry McLaurin. I just got my dogs to do dog things. Josh Allen, 26.8. Jalen Waddle, 19.5. Austin Eckler, 24.1. Now, Devin Duvernay, he did me dry. Devin Duvernay did me really, really dry because he's been sitting on my bench for the past couple of weeks, putting up 10, 12, 13. I'm like, man, I got to put him in my flex. Put him in my flex to give me 1.5. So I thought I was going to lose. Drake London doing me dry. Brian Robinson doing me dry. I put in Will Lutz because I think my kicker was on a bye. He got me 7. Chargers defense got me 7. And that was able to get me over the hump. I had to beat my brother by 5 points. Sometimes, it's all fair in fantasy football. So love you, bro. I had to get the W. I had to keep up with the standings. And let's take a look at the standings in our nitty-gritty fantasy football league. Our fearless leader, Wayne Breezy, right down there at the bottom, 2-7. Ooh, sir. Not his fault, though. He didn't ask for the Colts to be trashed, not have a quarterback, and Jonathan Taylor to get hurt. I got to take a look. Let me see. Who else on his team? Let me try to pull that up real quick because I got a little bit of time. Go to the league. Let's see. Herbert is not really doing Herbert things. I got Herbert in another league. DK was going through some injuries. He's got Hawkinson. Keenan Allen hasn't seen the field. George Pickens really ain't doing what he's supposed to be doing. Amari Cooper is up and down. He got Miami defense also up and down. So it's not his fault. His real horses, Jonathan Taylor, Keenan Allen, that's supposed to be propelling this team forward, they ain't really doing what they supposed to be doing. So Breezy sitting at 2-7. Right now, I am third. I'm behind the brother John V. I am behind Nothing But Niners resident GM, my brother Tony. Those two gentlemen are sitting at 6-3, and I'm right behind them at 5-4. I am still leading the league in points scored in 1,100.5 points. Although that lead is shrinking a bit, John V is only behind me by 8 points, to be specific, 7.6. So I'm going to have to really have a good day scoring this week to keep that lead. And hopefully if he loses and I get a dub and Tony loses, that'll put me at John got to lose and Tony got to lose. And as long as I continue to score more points than both of those gentlemen, I will be in first place at 6-4. So we just got to see what happens. Who do we play week 10? Oh, we got Tony. Oh, we got Tony. So I control my own destiny. I can win. He can lose. At least put me in the number 2 spot. And then if John V loses and I continue to score more points than him, then we be number 1. So, okay. Me and Tony, head to head, week 10. I like to see it. Okay. All right. That's going to be a good one. We will let you guys know how that match turns out, what the results will be at the end of week 10. Lastly, what we want to do, let's touch base on, didn't get a chance to make a graphic for that. Let's touch base on the teams that are on a bye. I believe those teams are the Bengals, the Patriots, the Ravens. It's another team. Bengals, Patriots, Ravens, and the Jets. Bengals, Patriots, Ravens, and Jets. So just looking at some of the star power, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Mark Andrews, Mac Jones, Kenyan Drake stepping up as a running back for the Ravens. So a lot of key players that may be sitting for some teams this week. And then we'll look at just some of the recent injuries. Josh Allen, his status is questionable, up in the air with the UCL injury in his elbow. Kyler Murray, hamstring injury. His status is questionable. The Raiders put Darren Waller on IR, so he's out at least 4 weeks. So those are the teams on the bye. Those are some recent injuries. So what can we do? As far as the quarterback position, just looking at the schedule, just doing some preliminary thoughts. Baker Mayfield versus Atlanta. I think, we know that PJ Walker was in that first game a couple of weeks ago where the Falcons and the Panthers went into overtime. Baker has seemingly taken back over that starting quarterback position. Looks like he's probably going to get the start tonight versus the Falcons. Will we have another shootout? It's possible. So you could look at starting Baker Mayfield if you don't have any other options. I think Jared Goff versus Detroit. I mean, not versus Detroit. Jared Goff with Detroit versus the Bears. That has the potential to be another shootout. 2 teams, really, really poor defenses. And then Andy Dalton going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know it's on the road. It's in Pittsburgh. It might be a little chilly there. But Pittsburgh's defense has not been the same since TJ Watt went out. And depending on who's at quarterback for them, doesn't matter if it's Trubisky or Pickett. I think New Orleans will have opportunities to move the ball. So Mayfield, Goff, Andy Dalton, if you really, really need somebody. I mean, Mariota too. We could throw Marcus Mariota in that. Again, I rarely like starting guys on Thursday night just because it's a short week. I just don't like it for the fact that you're scoring points so early. And if you don't have a dynamite game, 20, 25, 30 points from a bona fide stud, then, it's kind of a waste. And, your opponent is now looking at having a good chance of getting a W just because, you've got guys in there already. But that's what I would say from a quarterback standpoint if you need somebody. From a running back standpoint, Jeff Wilson Jr. With the Miami Dolphins versus the Cleveland Browns. He got traded, went to an offensive scheme that he knows, didn't miss a beat. It looks like he probably will take over that starting running back position. Although Raheem Mostert has already been there, I think they're going to start Jeff Wilson. They're going to spell him with Raheem Mostert, similarly to what they did in San Francisco at times. So I think he's a good option. Deion Jackson, Indianapolis Colts. We know that Jonathan Taylor is not going to play. And if he does, he may not play much. I know Deion Jackson is also dealing with some nagging injuries, but I feel like he's the best option, one of the best options of available running backs if you don't already have him picked up. Elijah Mitchell, 49ers, he is coming back this week. We play Sunday night at home against the Chargers. Chargers run defense is a little suspect this year. And I think we're going to try to incorporate Elijah Mitchell to help protect Christian McCaffrey a little bit, to not make him have 30 carries a game or 30 touches between carries and runs. So Elijah Mitchell could be an option. And Jamal Williams, Detroit Lions, again, versus the Chicago Bears, viable option, especially in the red zone. Punch it in and get some numbers. As far as wide receivers, the way Patrick is tossing the pigskin, throwing 70 times last week, and every week he seems to find more chemistry with his guys. So Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, if those guys are available, I would definitely look at adding those guys. Kansas City going up against that Jacksonville defense. I don't think you can go wrong with any one of those receivers. Drake London versus Carolina. Again, I think this has the potential to be a similar shootout. I know the defenses are going to want to come out and play a little bit better, but short week Thursday night. It's going to be a lot of the same from a couple of weeks ago. So Drake London versus Carolina. And then Chicago's wide receivers versus Detroit. Detroit had a good game against the Green Bay Packers, but I don't think their defense is going to have two solid games in a row like that. So either Claypool and N'Keal Harry, Darnell Mooney is probably not somebody that's available. But if you can get Claypool, if somebody released him after he was traded from Pittsburgh, or if N'Keal Harry is there, you can look to add those guys at the wide receiver positions. Everybody else, for the most part, is already picked up, unless you want to try maybe Julio Jones from Tampa. I know I had him and cut him at some point. Maybe Julio from Tampa, but I'm looking at everybody else and all their receivers. Most of these guys are already on teams and not really available. So just kind of giving you guys some names of guys who might be available. That's going to do it. Short show this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this Mose Knows Fantasy. Again, any questions that you guys have, I'm seeing a lot of them on Twitter. So my Twitter, my IG, What Mose Knows, all together, WhatMoseknows, What Mose Knows on IG and Twitter. You can hit me on either one of those mediums. And if you got questions about what you want to do in fantasy, if you're struggling to decide between two options, if you want to run it by me and I can give you my thoughts, listen, I won't take offense if you don't go with my suggestion. I'm just here to help you talk it out, kind of get some things on the table, maybe help you see something a little bit differently. If I see it differently from you, just to make you help your decision. You don't have to take my advice. It's all good. I just want to help you out as much as I can. You can give me a follow on TikTok, Mose Knows. Got to record my picks video this week. I haven't recorded in a couple of weeks. Got to get that done. If you want to shoot me an email, what.mose.knows@gmail.com. And of course, you're already here at the YouTube channel. If it's your first time here, hit that thumbs up if you like the content. Add a comment below if you like the video. If you want to ask a question about fantasy, kind of get those tips in, and then subscribe to the channel. Become a part of the Mose Knows fan. Once you're part of the family, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I am going to post this now. Let you guys consume this content, watch this content, and I will be back with you tonight live, 9 p.m. with my brother Jesse Naylor for our mid-season review. Love and appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.